Hi, today I want to offer you an advice, a strategy that I learned from Don Sullivan. He's a fantastic coach. I learned it from a program that he offers at nightingale.com, and he runs a company called Strategic Coach. So due credit to the person who kind of educated me on this, and it had a transformative effect on my life. And I often use this tool to actually bring my clients back to a grateful, positive reality. You see, what happens with a lot of our clients is they're so passionate, they're so driven towards the outcome they want to go to that they forget about the progress that they have made. What do I mean? So think about it like this. What happens when you have to think about your goals and you write down your goals and you look at them in the morning? What happens? Usually overwhelmed, because your goals or the place where you want to go is so further away. And goals doesn't have to be about only revenue goals. Any goals, like health goals, it could be about just spirituality goals, presence goals, things, relationship goals, things that you are kind of like going, oh, I really want to go there, but I am not there yet. It's extremely frustrating in today's place where you are present, to be able to have some place that you need to go and you're not really feeling like how to really get there, and you feel overwhelmed and you feel anxious, and that makes our clients in a place where it's harder to coach. Because if, as a coach, when I'm coaching them, if they're not at the right state, it's very hard for me to bring a transformation, right? If the state is pessimistic, down, not excited, it becomes really hard for us to be able to drive a breakthrough. Whereas if they're at a place of joy, they're at a place of happiness, they're at a place of empowerment, they're at a place of saying, yes, I can do it, it becomes easier for you to drive a transformation, right? So state of your client is very important. This tool is phenomenal to bring them to a state that is a positive state, which is ready for transformation, because they can see what really needs to be seen. Before I get into the tool, you need to understand one concept really, really beautifully, okay? Here's the concept. So if you really think about your clients or think about goals generally, it's something to this tune, right? You have yourself, and then you have a goal, right? This is where, let's say, you will achieve enlightenment or whatever. There's a relationship goal, right? And you are making progress towards this goal, right? Now, what happens is when you're making progress towards this goal is the moment you're almost at the goal, you move to and create a new goal for yourself, right? I'm going to put twice as many circles around. Because as human beings, we are progress-oriented, right? The moment I am getting close to this goal, I will move my goal further, which also means by default, by choice, we as human beings, we are so growth-driven that we will tend to never reach our ideal self. There was a speech I was watching of Matthew McConaughey, and he talks about what is it that he wants to be, right? Because there's somebody to chase always, right? You want to be that person, you want to chase. And he says, and it's a beautiful line is why I'm saying this, it was his Oscar-winning speech, where he says, well, once I met a person, and that person was a really respectable person in my life. I'm going to try and say it like Matthew McConaughey, but I can't, so I'm just going to say it my way. I met this person in my life, and this person asked me, hey, Matthew, what do you want to be? And he says, well, I want to be, or who's your hero? Sorry, that's what he said. Who's your hero? And he says, well, my hero is myself 10 years from now, right? And then that same person comes back when Matthew was 10 years older, to the age when he met him, and he asks, hey, so have you met your hero? Have you become your hero? He says, no, my hero is 10 years from now. Now, what I really want to say there is that progress is so inbuilt in us that we look at ourselves 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead, and the goals we set out for ourselves are, sometimes we put that the year goal, but it actually is a 2, 3, 4, 5-year goal, because it's so hard. And that's how we see ourselves, which is also called the ideal self, right? This is your ideal self. You want to get there, but the moment you get there, if you ever get there and if you don't set a new goal, you will be pretty depressed, because you'll be like, I've got everything in life. What do I do? Right? So it's very important that this logic happens, but also when you are getting close to this goal, guess what happens? Because you're not there yet, or because your goal has moved to this ideal self, it's extremely frustrating. Right? It's extremely frustrating. This is where most of us feel we are not making progress. You're not making progress because you're like, I have not gotten there yet, without realizing that I have moved my goal. Or even if I haven't moved my goal, this is a journey. Right? This is a journey. Getting goals is a journey, and you'll keep moving forward, and that's what is really important. Right? Now, here is the challenge, though. It's very hard for our clients to see this. It's very hard for even us to see it. It's like, yeah, I know I'm an ideal self, but come on, I really want to get there, right? That's what really happens, and that's the challenge. Here's the exercise that I was talking about, is if we first start with explaining this concept to your clients of saying, hey, listen, there's an ideal self that you created, that's the goal that you put yourself, but as a growth-centered human being, you would want to keep moving your ideal self, which is why you will actually never be your ideal self. You can even send them that Matthew McConaughey video if you want. Just Google it, the Oscar speech by Matthew. So you can tell them this conceptually and then say, hey, listen, what if we actually looked at where were you 10 years ago? Okay? So what happens then is you challenge them to look at themselves 5 years ago, 10 years ago, depending on the client and what you're really trying to establish as the outcome. But let's say, for example's sake, we will say, let's try to see where you were 10 years ago, okay, when you set out this goal. Right? 10 years ago when you set out, or 1 year ago when you set out this goal. When you set out this goal, you were, let's say, hypothetically, you were broke, you didn't have any money, you didn't have no clients, you didn't know what to do, et cetera, et cetera. You were in college, whatever that was, right? So that's what you were 10 years ago. Where are you now? And then they might go, well, right now I'm at a place, I'm so happy about my life, I have a wife, I have this much money, I finally am not broke, I have a job, I have a business, whatever that is, right? All of a sudden, while you're doing this exercise, think about this reality. This reality, you have actually got them to transcend and go beyond and create a reality where they were actually not successful at all. They didn't have a good reality. So what happens is now we've established that if I look at myself 10 years ago, I had a huge transformation that I have created in the past 10 years. Right? Because now they can actually list the difference of them 10 years ago to difference of them now. If it's a 1 year cycle, then again, it's the same story. Where were you 1 year ago? And where are you now? Most of human beings make progress. Like 98, 99% of us make progress in some way, right? And if you make progress, you're able to say what progress you made. It might be a small progress, but still in the context of a year, it will look like a big progress. You might have lost 2 kilos instead of 20 that you wanted to, but it's progress. You have lost 2, right? Or your eating habits have become better, or something has become better. At least if you were the coach of that person, you definitely have had that result, right? Some result, right? And that result puts them into a place of saying, oh, I have made progress. And yes, I'm not at my ideal self, but I am at the ideal self of myself 10 years ago. Right? You are already at an ideal self. Because 10 years ago, you didn't expect yourself to have whatever you have right now. That was maybe your goal, maybe something that you really aspire to, but you didn't know if you'll get there. So you've actually made progress. You've already established. This is called the reverse gap, by the way, is where you've established that in the past, you were nowhere close to your ideal self, but you met your ideal self in your today. And the ideal self that you put yourself out there in the future is something that you will get to one day. But you don't have to feel frustrated about it. You just have to know that this gap will also happen if you look at it in the next 10 years. Or whatever that timeline that you want to establish with them to really think about things. Right? And then you'll have a new ideal self, of course. But that is another thing that is a gap. Yes, there will always be a gap in the future, because if there will be no gap, we will become stagnant. There will be no growth. Right? You want to have growth. You want to have that gap. That gap is something you never get. And that puts them into a different mindset, a mind shift, because they now can acknowledge and be in a place of gratitude, because now they go, oh, I have so many things that I didn't know I will have. They're at a higher vibration. They're at a higher place. So now when you work with them on the breakthrough of saying, hey, listen, these are the things that we need to do to get to the ideal self that you establish now for yourself, it's much easier for them to accept that transformation. It's much easier for them to kind of see at the lens of saying, oh, okay, it's not that I'm a failure, right? Because that's the challenge we were dealing with. It's not that you're a failure. It just simply means that you are making progress every day, right? So instead of seeing the failure, they start to see progress. And that fundamentally can shift the way we coach them after that, right? So I wanted to offer this tool. Again, great acknowledgement to the person who actually educated me on it. I don't know if he's the originator of it, but definitely I learned it from Don Sullivan, from Strategic Coach. So go check out his work. But this tool is extremely useful and very prominent for you to be able to use when you have to move the state of your client while you're talking to them and they're feeling like a failure.